Welcome back, friends. Mark here. Today we're going to take a close look at the Bosch 6.5 inch 13 amp track saw. It's been available in the States now for about 3 years, and I've been running this one for about 6 months, so I have some experience with it. And then what we're going to do right now, I'm going to show you how fast I can set this up comfortably and rip a full 8-foot length of 1/2 inch plywood. All right, so I am really happy with the results of this track saw right here. It just really does a great job. It's really easy to set up, and then it's easy to break down and put away as well too. So one thing that I used to do when I tried to rip some 8-foot plywood is I would try to do it on a table saw, and when you're working by yourself or even using some work supports, it still doesn't do nearly as good of a job. It's not as quick and easy as this is right here, and you're not going to have any mistakes. It's not going to have any wobble to it like a table saw could potentially have. So I highly recommend this. Let's try this on another challenge. So let's see if we'll just use a smaller track and see if we have some 3/4 inch plywood here. Okay, we're going to break this down and just use this track section right here. Oh, by the way, I did put a stopwatch to see how long it takes for me to take it from this and then to lay it out and have everything assembled and clamped down, and then to put the track saw on with the dust collection hose. It was 1 minute and 13 seconds. So that to me is no time at all. And then once you have this whole track assembled, if you have to make repeat cuts, it'll literally just take seconds. And here's one of the accessories I want to point out. This is a clamp you can get. I have one at each end. It just helps ensure that the track won't ever move around at all. There is a rubber strip on the bottom right here that causes a little bit of friction to hold it in place. There's a 63 inch like I have right here, and this one is 43.3, and then I think there's a 31.5. All right, so the two tracks that I have, the 63 and the 43. So I just want to mention the overall length of these, just in case you're wondering. I think this is the best setup. I wasn't exactly sure which ones to get, but these two together work perfect. They give you just enough that you need to rip an entire 8-foot piece of plywood. And the overall length of this is 106.3. All right, let's get that 3/4 inch plywood up here. So one thing I like about the clamp system is I can put it over here or I can put it over here. Right now I have that 2x4 in the way, so it's just real easy to not have to change up everything I just laid out. So see how fast that clamps on there. All right, that looks good. So the last time I cut some 1/2 inch plywood, now we're cutting 3/4 inch plywood. And right here is your depth gauge. Right now I have it set up just for a little over half. I'm going to set it for just a little over 3/4 right there. So when I push that forward, I can do a plunge cut if I want to. All right, so I'm really curious if you notice much sawdust. This really if you look at this setup right here, this is all enclosed, and that really controls the dust. You have this little adjustable window right here, so when I push that down, I believe that that will help bring the dust back through. All right, so I have one more test I want to show you guys. Right over there, I believe I have either a 2x8 or a 2x10. We're gonna rip 1 inch off of it. So I haven't really tried that out, but we'll just see how the motor on here does. And it does have an overload protection just in case it's pushed too hard, it won't destroy your saw. So that's a nice thing to know that it has that. A lot of times, once people get a track saw like this, they really don't use their table saw that much anymore. They find that a track saw is safer and it can do quite a bit, almost the same amount that you can get with a table saw. The only thing is, when it comes to running a dado stack, they say that's the reason they have a router. So anyways, just want to point that out. This is just a nice, safe option to consider getting a track saw. I just turned my dust extractor up a little bit to have it run at a higher speed, so you might notice a sound difference from that. The thickness of this wood is definitely going to generate more sawdust, so let's just prepare for it. And now, before we do this, I do have to adjust the depth. All right, here we go, ripping a 2x10. All right, so yes, this really did a nice job. I did have to take it slow. So one thing to point out, this isn't gonna go as fast as my table saw. It has a 48 fine tooth blade right here, which really works well for plywood. This is the cut side right here. Definitely did a great job. So now I'm gonna put a piece of plywood down here. Let's get a close look at all the specs of the saw. This is a 120 volt, 13 amp motor. And if you were looking at the maximum cut depth at 90 degrees, 2.25 inches, and this Bosch saw is made in Germany. So as I was mentioning before that I don't mind the cord, this is the reason why. So if you look right underneath here, so this is what I have the track saw hooked up to right here. This is my Milwaukee 8-gallon dust extractor. So this has a corded tool option. So you plug the track saw in right here, and then you can put the switch right here. You can have it, there's a little icon right there for a tool. So if you flip it over there, then it will come on when the tool turns on, and it will run for about 5 seconds after you shut the tool off. Or if I just want to run the dust by itself, I can do that. So this option works really well if you have a corded tool. I understand that there is one option. It's available in the UK by Metabo. It's a remote start. I think it's something that clamps onto your tool. When it senses the vibration, then this other end plugs in here and it will turn it on remotely. And I've also found a setup with the little foot switch that you can buy. So you can just have that foot switch by where you're working. You can just turn it on and off without having to always come back here and turn it on and off. But I started out around power tools my whole life, running with cords. And to have one tool only really that has a cord, because the rest of mine do not. I really don't mind one cord once in a while. Let's take a quick look at a few more features on here. So as I mentioned, this dust port right here, it will twist and it will lock into place almost like a positive stop in a few different positions. So depending on which way you have, if you have a dust hose hooked up, you can have it going all types of different directions. It can go down, it can go over to this side. And when it locks in place, it definitely stays there. And then when you go to do your plunge cut, this is your release. You push that up, and you can see that will go down. It'll plunge into that. So let's say you want to have it lock in position. So if you flip that up and you make your plunge cut, hear that click? Now it's locked into position. So you may end up using this like a regular circular saw, where you just want to have it at a fixed position. So you can do that. And then to release it, you just push this back. Watch. And then you may not have had a good look up top here. You're wondering what this little red button is right there. So that is if you go to change your blade right there, you have access to that right in the center. So this is how you lock the spindle. So you can then take your wrench here and we'll lock the blade, so you can, there, so you turn the blade. When you push that down, it locks it in place. If you're wondering if I've had any concerns with this or any improvements I'd like to see, the one thing that I guess I was wondering about when I first purchased this, when you start it up, it makes a little bit of a sound. I looked at some other videos, and normally I don't look at other tool review videos before I make my own, but one of them, they said it has kind of a slow sound and a little bit of a gravelly sound. So let me show you real quick. So once the motor gets up to speed, then it just hums right along, but it's just that initial start. It just has that little bit of, like, as I mentioned, just like a little gravel sound, and as it's starting. I've also heard this described as having a soft start. This actually reminds me of a compound miter saw. I have a DeWalt saw, and ever since that was brand new, it had that kind of slow start to it. And that miter saw has been with me at many job sites for several years, and it's done a great job. So I think it's just the characteristic of how it sounds. So if you happen to purchase one and you go to start it and you hear that, that is something that is not a concern. It's just something that you might wonder about, but it's no problem at all. And the nice thing is, you know, this has a 2-year warranty if you buy it refurbished. So as I mentioned, I purchased this from eBay. I'm also going to provide some links to Home Depot as well, in case you want to see all their reviews, and they might have some questions and answers on there that you might want to know about, just to see more ratings and the current price of it new. And I'll also include some prices. Some of these things I did purchase separately, like the tracks and the clamps and the sliding connector as well too. Here's an area where I think a track saw really shines. So let's say you're not making a perfect 90-degree cut. Let's say you have some type of angle cut to make. That's where it gets really tricky on a table saw. And let's say you want to have, like this side right here, say it's going to be 7 inches right to the edge. And let's say you're going to angle it, and this edge over here is going to be 9 inches. So get that right to the edge there. So I just want to interject this part right here. So before I ever had a track saw, I used different things I could find as an edge. So there have been times where I've used a 2x4, and let me know if you've done this too, where you've used that to make this angle cut right here, and then somehow there might be a gap or something, and then your circular saw like goes underneath this somehow, and you get off course. So that's just something that, you know, it costs a lot of money when you have to buy new plywood because you messed up, and it's just kind of frustrating. So getting back to the track right here, this is just how easy it is. So you just set the edge of the splinter guide right up on that mark right there, that one right there, and you just leave enough of an overhang so your saw has room to start, and then you don't need as much room down at that end. Clamp this one down real quick, and then you put the track saw on right here, and you're good to go. I don't actually need to rip this down, but I just want to show you as a demonstration on the benefits of cutting angle pieces with a track saw. So in case I didn't cover what these two knobs, there's one there and one right back there, what they do. You can loosen them or tighten them, and that will adjust this section right here in the front and in the back of the shoe, so that way it will not have any wobble to it on the track itself. So it's just a fine-tune adjustment. I think once you dial in, like I've done now, you never have to worry about it again. All right, so I have another test for you guys. We're going to do a 45-degree bevel cut. So you can see right here, all right, there is the gauge. So going to loosen the front here, loosen the back, which I've already done. Put this on the track in a second. We're going to then tilt this. Let me go up here. We're going to tilt this to 45 degrees. Tighten both sides, front and back, I mean. All right, so let's do the 45-degree cut. Gonna loosen this, take this off the track. All right, so this is just really nice and clean. And I may not have mentioned this before, but the splinter guard on this right here really does a nice job. There's just no splinters up here. Really looks great. there's a couple more things I think you're going to want to know about the track itself. So if you read the comments, a lot of people say that this track is really a great addition to the whole system. It's like one of the things that really makes the system awesome. And it has, well, a couple of different things. So there's a little bit, the stiffness of this track is really decent. It does have a little give to it. So if you can just see, it's got a little wobble at the end. So it will give enough. So let's say you have your work cantilevered over a sawhorse and the plywood's bending down a little bit. Well, this will give somewhat with it and kind of help keep the saw going with the material. So that's one nice thing. And then if you can see this right here, there's removable end caps. So you can take those off for joining the different track sections together. Or if you want to put your clamp on it, you do have to take those off to slide them in one of the grooves. And then if you keep these end caps on, so when you're bringing your saw across, either the power cord or the air hose, it won't dig into the metal. Because you can see this has the end cap off, and that edge can be, it's a 90-degree edge, can be a little bit sharp where it could actually grab into that. So if you want to join two tracks together, you do have to purchase this separate right here. This is the Track Connector. And this, as you can see, it has the arrows pointing that direction. So you have to make sure you follow that every time. I'm trying to do this one-handed here. So you slide that there. And then when you put this one up against it, and you pull this through, and you can see that white line there. It just goes right on the seam. So this is a self-aligning system, so you can't mess it up. It gets it perfect every single time. So it just takes a second to connect this, so you just make sure these are pushed together tight, and then you just go ahead and then you give those a turn till they're nice and snug. So I usually do one on each side, alternate, and that just aligns that perfect. It's amazing. So right there, when you run your hand, your finger across it, it's just a nice continuous seam. All right, friends, so I hope this video has been able to help you learn everything that you want to know about track saws, and especially this Bosch one right here. So it's definitely an investment. It's expensive. It's one of those things where they say it's going to hurt once, but I think when you have this for the long haul, you're going to be very happy with it. There's a couple things that come to mind really quick. Is number one, you have a lot less sawdust that you're breathing. It's a very efficient system that collects the dust, especially if you can hook a dust collector up to it. And then also there's hardly any exposed blade to it. So you have all those safety features. If all the prolonged use of this, there's much less risk with this. And then the other thing is it's going to cut pretty much perfect every single time. You're not going to have the wasted material like plywood. I don't know if you've purchased plywood lately, but some of that half-inch plywood is very expensive, and I hate to make any wasteful cuts by mistake. So that's another way that this is going to help pay for itself over the long haul. So I think you're going to be happy with one. Let me know your comments. I would be really excited to hear what you have to say. And then at the end of this video, I'll have a couple different links where one is a playlist where you can see some alternative methods for ripping 8-foot plywood in case this isn't what you're looking for. There's several videos with other brands and products I've tested that you might want to check out as well. So if you enjoy this video, you find it interesting, helpful, and informative, please give it a thumbs up and help support my channel. That's it, friends. Thanks for watching. See you next time.